I don't know. I always tell people, I'm like, you don't need to slog around at marathon pace and all these other things. Like, have fun, run a little bit less than you would, head to the track, do some 200 repeats. I think a mile is a great kind of thing to train for if you're just like, I just want to be an overall kind of well-rounded athlete.
This episode of the Run DNA podcast with Drew Hunter was a really fun one for me. Two reasons. Drew is just a great human being and a great runner. It's great to hear about his career, the journey that he's gone through with injuries, how he's going about an Olympic year. It's definitely great to hear a pro's perspective and get some inside information about how he's training and what he's doing. But then on the flip side, Drew and I did a little fun where I am training to run a sub 5-minute mile as I turn 40. And Drew actually takes me through and designs my next 4 weeks of training. And we go through it and he talks about his way that he goes about it. So I think everyone needs a coach, and I'm going to step up and say, present company included. So Drew is going to coach me to this sub 5-minute mile. So you can follow that along. And we're definitely going to do a follow-up with this as well. So lots of fun to have here. You can listen to it as podcast, but if you have the option to go on and check it out on YouTube, you're going to be able to see some screen share for the second half of the podcast. It might be good just to see what it looks like and see the workouts as they get put into the app. So enjoy. Hey everyone, Doug Adams here with Run DNA Podcast. Very excited to have Drew Hunter on with us today here. So just really appreciate you being here, Drew. I want to give a little quick intro. Drew is basically, I consider like the Kobe Bryant of running. Basically in 2016, he started off in high school, broke the mile record. That was like 3:57:81, if I'm remembering right there.
That sounds right.
That sounds about right there. So, that was back in 2016. And then really just came onto the scene strong. I think one of my all-time favorite races to watch was Penn Relays, where you had that huge come from behind victory in the relay there, where you ran the mile anchor leg and just completely ran there was nobody else existing in the world. It was really cool to watch there. That was a lot of fun. So, and then were you the first, or at least one of the first, to ever sign as a professional runner coming directly out of high school?
Yeah, one of the first. There's a few sprinters who did it, but distance runners not as common, and so
Not as much
that was
there.
a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, just obviously a really big deal in the running community here, but also generally just one of the nicest people I know, and Drew is somebody I've been very fortunate to get to know over the past 5 or 6 years. Now we've gotten to know each other, and now a father and a husband, and got to know him on a personal level there. But few people that you'll ever meet as caring and just genuine of a person as Drew. So I am very excited to have Drew on here. He's also a founding member of Tinman Elite and a professional runner for Adidas, and a couple national championships as well as a professional runner. Which events have you been national championship in? Just remind me. I know
2 mile and then 5K on the road.
5K.
Yep.
Yeah. So just lots of great accomplishments here, many other accolades, but it's a great conversation to have here today. Excited about it. So because I know Drew well, I wanted to prepare and get other people to know Drew. So I thought of 5 or 6 running questions that I have never asked Drew, and we've had lots of conversations. So some of these, softballs, pretty easy ones, but I want to see what your answers are to these. So, all right, favorite race you've ever run?
Ooh, that's a good question. I struggle with this. I think my most memorable one is probably the Penn Relays DMR with my team, because it was with my team. But my personal favorite race or venue was Oslo Diamond League. It's just the best track and field meet I've ever raced in. The fans are amazing. I got to race against the Ingebrigtsen brothers, so on their home soil was really, really special. And I had a good race too. So any place you have a good race is definitely, makes the experience better.
Yeah, a little trifecta there. That's awesome. All right, proudest running accomplishment.
This one may surprise people, but I really think my proudest running accomplishment currently is actually starting Tinman Elite, which I know is not, maybe something people would have thought, but I just look back on what I've done athletically and I'm not so happy with my career. I've had some good moments, but really like having a team around me that, I was a founding member of and able to, recruit and help other athletes continue to live their, professional running dream has been something that I can really look back on and, be really proud of. So I'd say that.
I'd say that's very true, Drew Hunter response there. Having known you there, that's great too. All right, go to pre-race meal.
Keep it simple. I just always try to find like a nicer Italian place, and
Mm.
I'll normally get some sort of like spaghetti and meatballs, something like that. If I'm feeling a little crazier, I'll try a different pasta dish. But most of the time, it's got to be above. This is making me sound a little crazy, but it's got to be above 4.3 reviews on Google. Otherwise, I'm not going to go. I don't want to risk getting food poisoning before a race. That's a big rule I have.
Oh, yeah.
Little tidbit there.
Mhm.
But yeah, just something Italian pasta is normally what I'll do.
I'm a Yelp guy for figuring that out, and it's funny. 4.3 is my limit. I won't go to a restaurant unless it has 4.3 stars on
Yes.
Yelp.
It's not even just for like, like I'm not trying to, make me sound bougie or anything like that. I really just do not want to get food poisoning the night before a race. And so I'm like, if it has solid reviews and none of them are related to food poisoning, like let's do it.
That's awesome. Drew could also be like a chef. Every
Yeah.
time I've like eaten at his house, he just takes really good food and makes it like simple but very good. I Every time I'm out in Colorado and Drew's feeding me, I feel very nourished there. So,
Thanks, Doug.
um, all right, craziest thing you've seen or experienced on a run?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, okay, this is actually a kind of a funny one, or not a funny one, but the quote that says like, um, if a tree falls down in the woods, but you weren't there to
Yeah,
witness this, did it really
write
fall
it
down?
down.
I'm butchering the quote, but everyone's heard that at some point.
Yeah,
I was actually on a run completely by myself. No one was chopping down a tree. It was on a beautiful trail back in right outside of Virginia and Maryland, where I'm from. And I was just running by, and I literally witnessed out of nowhere just a tree just completely tip over and fall. And I actually thought of that quote, and I was like, "Wow!" Like no one else was around me. I was by myself,
yeah.
no headphones in, and I just thought a lot about how running kind of creates these experiences where you're by yourself, and you have this you just get to see so much of the world. It's like when you travel to a city and you can just run around and see so much by just from your legs. And so that's what came to mind when you asked that question, because I did think like, I don't know how many people have been out on a run and happened to see just a tree randomly falling down. So it was pretty eerie, but also it was an interesting experience.
That is cool. I like that one. Yeah, that's a good one. One thing you never leave home without when going on a run?
Um, a hat.
A hat.
I run every single day with a hat. I mean, as you can see,
Yeah.
this is on most of the time. I just got a really bad haircut, so I kind of have an accidental mullet right now, and so the hat is even more necessary to hide that up. Um, but yeah, like I can't even remember. It's funny. I don't race in a hat. Even like sometimes with harder workouts, I'll take the hat off, but almost always I'm wearing a hat at the start of practice. If it's cold out, a beanie. If it's nicer out, a hat. So I'd say that.
That's funny. I was looking at before this, just like your Wikipedia page a little bit too, and I saw this picture of you with super long hair too, and you had a hat on though. So
Yeah.
I'd say that
Always.
that's always a hat on there.
Yeah.
I pretty much always run in my Tinman Elite hat. Those are great hats. I
They
love
they
those.
are good hats. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you guys even have the dad hats that you have. Like that's my go-to. Don't burn my bald head hat.
Perfect.
All right, now last one, a little more on a personal note here. All right, you're a father now. Do
Mhm.
you hope that your children run?
Good question. I mean, I think like most parents, like I will never, you know, or I shouldn't say most parents, but good parental advice that I've received from other parents is, you don't want to force your kids into doing something. So I think like I'd like to introduce them to a broad spectrum of sports and activities and hobbies and all those things. And like I would love to support them in whatever endeavor they choose. But I do think, it would be really cool. Even less of it, like athletically, I just think it'd be so cool to like run with your kids. I just think that'd be fun. Like, even if they just want to do it for fitness, um, I feel like I'll be running the rest of my life. That's a goal I have, is to always, just stay healthy enough where I can at least get out the door for a few miles until I'm really, really old. And so that'd be cool to share that with my kids. But whatever they want to do, like if they want to be basketball players or play the piano, whatever, I'll just be happy that I get to participate in that.
As long as they enjoy it. Yeah, but I was joking the other day, your daughter Ella's sponsor before I am, with the advertisement that you did for Thule,
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah, no, she's already getting spoiled in strollers. So,
Yeah.
we'll see what's happening next.
Nice. Love it. Yeah. So, small preview of Drew Hunter here, but, maybe give us a little update. We were talking more beforehand, like where are you at training? It's Olympic year, that's a big time in running here.
Yeah.
How's training going? What are you most excited for? Where are you at? When's your next race kind of thing?
Yeah, it is an Olympic year, so everyone's freaking out, training really hard, flying to all these races, trying to chase standards, and I've kind of taken the opposite approach this year. I've just kind of bunkered down in Longmont, Colorado, which is 15 minutes outside of Boulder, and been with
Yeah.
my family and just putting in a really, really good foundation for the year with a lot of very boring and simple intervals of threshold work, hill repeats, some long runs, some faster, 200s and strides and things like that. But I've really kind of just taken the approach this year that I want to be my best in June. That's when the trials are. And
Yep.
I don't think I'll do that if I am chasing times throughout the whole year. And so I think that's kind of been my plan this fall. I'm trying new things. I'm racing a track 10K for the first time in 10 days. And that's terrifying, but also incredibly exciting. I've only run a few track 5Ks, so I'm really just jumping up in distance. But I think that mentally and also physically, having the challenge of a track 10K will really set my year up well. Just knowing that I'm doing shorter races the rest of the summer, I think it's a great idea to have a longer strength based race on the calendar to start, and then you can kind of fine tune things after that. But yeah, that's kind of the plan. I'll have some races. I'll, two races in April. I'm going to run the BAA 5K, and then Penn Relays. I'm actually going back for a 1500. And then hopefully in May, the big race there, we'll be chasing a fast 5K with a few of my teammates. So, yeah, that's the plan. But like I said, it's Olympic year. People do crazy things, and, indoor season, people were running lights out. And I've seen this rodeo before where people run so well and then, they're injured for the trials, or maybe they keep the peak going and they have a great year. Like, all the power to them. But
Mhm.
I've kind of taken the opposite approach, is I'll let other people make mistakes, and I'm hoping to be at my best in June. And, just really setting up a really, really big foundation. And yeah, and I'm just enjoying, like for me, traveling every weekend and, chasing times, like it gets exhausting. And I had some
Yeah.
issues last year with staying healthy illness wise, not actually running. I've worked with Doug a lot, and we had a great strength routine last year that really uh, helped me stay healthy. In terms of injuries, but I had a lot of sickness throughout the year, and I think a lot of that had to do with traveling too much and just forcing things and stressors on the body. I had my first baby, and so I think really this year we've just kind of take the methodical approach of being my best in June. And I just keep, you have like the devil on your shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder. And the greedy part of me is like, go to these races, just start really getting after it in practice. And then, I have a lot of people in my corner that are like, okay, like, what do you really want to accomplish? And it's be your best in June. And that means slow things down. So that's kind of, where I'm at. And I feel really good about it, and I feel happy. And that's always important, and so I'm in a good spot, and I feel like Coach and I have a good plan to really attack this year well.
Yeah, it's so important to have the confidence to know that you can perform and that you got to trust what's best for you. And
Mhm.
along those lines of like minimum effective, like you don't have to maximize everything. This is probably a theme that we've mentioned almost on every podcast that we've talked about. So hopefully people are starting to get the point of like, man, it's not about doing more. It's about doing the right stuff and having the confidence that that's going to work, and realize that it takes time and do that. So, um, you mentioned a little bit about your injury journey here, and what can you share as an athlete who has had like a journey getting back from injury, and what that takes as a runner, and how to find that formula that really helps you to stay healthy, because the consistency is such a big part of running.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, everyone's different, can handle different loads, has different life stressors outside of running that, can or, may make your running worse or better. I'm fortunate enough where I'm a full-time runner, so I can, structure my day around what's best for me. But I really think everyone has to kind of reflect on that and figure out like, okay, maybe an extra day off in the week because I work 60 hours is what I have to do. Or maybe, just spending a time cross training one day. So I think, that's the first thing I would say is just be honest with yourself about where you're at, and always under training consistently for a long time will win out over, overtraining for short periods of time. So I'd say that's the first thing. But with myself personally, like I really, like I said last year, I kind of figured out like traveling a lot, running, lots of really hard interval workouts. I just didn't respond that well to it. I may felt good for like a month of the year. Like I had one really solid month of racing early on. But I kind of fizzled out after that. And this year, I think, we kind of took the opposite approach. Um, of really, having methodical, easier training, a little bit higher volume with intervals and threshold work, but at a lot lower of an intensity. And then knowing, okay, when do we want to really kind of like turn the screw of things, and knowing, okay, like I need to be my best in June. So we really shouldn't be getting that aggressive until, April, end of April, early May, even. Because like I said, everyone's different, but I respond really, really quickly to intervals and faster workouts. So if I do 2 or 3 pretty aggressive track sessions, like I'm ready to go. But if I don't have a great foundation and base behind that,
Yeah.
I'll bleed pretty quick. Meaning I'll run maybe 1 or 2 good races, and then things will start to kind of fall apart. And so, everyone has a different formula, and I think it's one of the great reasons why you have a coach and you have other people in your corner to like compare things to and look back on. And for me, it's just been trial and error, I would say, of last year trying a new training system, which I'm proud to have done. I don't want to look back on my running career and have regrets about like, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. Like I really want to attack things head on and kind of see like what works and what doesn't. And last year we kind of tried a more aggressive interval approach and it just didn't work for me. And so I'd be a fool to try that again this year.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting back to what, I originally was good at, and that's strong, like longer intervals, a lot of threshold work, hills, a lot of kind of just really focusing on being fluid when I'm running. We Doug talk a lot about gait stuff, and I think a big thing for me is like when I feel like I'm, when I feel like I am fluid and running well, things start to click and I can be really good. And when I start to feel rigid and tight and locked up, my running kind of also it gets locked up. So yeah, I think it's a good question, and it's a good, everyone has a different formula, and I would say like just try different things and see what
Yeah.
works for you, and don't be afraid to fail. Like last year, I feel like for me was kind of a big failure, but it really this fall gave me um, a really good idea about what I wanted to do this year, and I'd say that's a win in and of itself.
Yeah. I mean, lots of good stuff in there. Thanks for sharing. One of the things, like, couple things that stood out to me, like, stress is stress.
Mhm.
And there's training stress, and there's psychological stress, and there's life stress. And
Yep.
if you're training that hard and you're getting sick because you're traveling, like, you have to consider the travel as a stress with that stuff.
Yes.
It's all created equal by your body. Your body doesn't know it might just view it as simply as, well, that's a lot of heartbeats to do that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a run or getting on an airplane, right? You're increasing your heartbeats in some way or another there. So
Yeah.
the other thing, like the analogy what you talked about with your current strategy, I've used this, and I think we've even talked about this, where the bank analogy, you
Mhm.
need to deposit and make deposits in the bank as much as you can with your training. And that's the consistency, that's the hard efforts, that's the quality sessions where you're just putting money in the bank.
Yeah.
And then you've got these events where they take money out of the bank and you're withdrawing, and you need to have some time to put some money back in the bank, or else that bank account runs down and you're in trouble. And
Yep.
that's always an analogy. I think you and I have talked about that in the past, and one that I use for runners, I think is helpful, because you got to make sure that you're putting enough in the bank. And if your bill is too big, like, that's probably not a good
Yep.
race for you to do there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Morgan Housel has a great book called The Psychology of Money, and
Mm.
basically talks a lot about how, like, just the longer term you look and the longer you do invest your money in, very simple things like, like an index fund, like, you're going to win out in the long term. But if you look at it as like a year or 2 year process, it's basically a slot machine. You're gambling,
Yeah.
and I,
Yep.
I think running's very similar to that, where this year I kind of was like, oh, June maybe 12 months away. But if I start doing some crazy intervals in October of 2023 or whenever I get started in running, I just don't know if I can make it there, and I don't know if I can make it
Yeah.
there successfully. And so, like, if I mean, people can follow me on Strava. Like, I mean, I'd say there's almost every good high school kid across the country could work out with me most of my interval days. I'm running 5 minute mile pace for, maybe a lot of volume, but it's not anything flashy. I mean, I'm trying to race at 350 mile pace. So, it is a very interesting kind of approach, but I think, it's just kind of like you just said, it's you got to pay those dues, and you got to, make sure that the bank is sitting pretty when you want to really make a deposit, which would be something like an Olympic trials race,
Yep.
or the Olympic Games. Like, those are when you really want to cash in. And so that's kind of, like, the approach this year, and I hope that it works out. And but I feel confident in that, and so regardless, I can show up to the starting line in June and be proud of what I did. And that's, at the end of the day, that's effort's all you can give, and that's the only thing that matters, is how much I can put out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I know we'll all be cheering for you here. You got cheering squads of that. It's going to be exciting to see. It's an exciting year to really follow running, and Olympic years are the years that running is most popular.
Yes.
So it's always fun to see. There's a lot more anticipation and coverage around it. So it's always fun to see. And then I think even going into the next Olympic cycle, with it being in the United States, like, there's going
Yeah.
to be even more prestige around some of that. So now, the other thing that you brought up in the injury journey there that I think is really important. You're also a founder for Hammer and Axe, right?
Mhm.
Coaching, and coaching
Yeah.
is a big part of what you do. And this is kind of a leading question here, but I'll ask it this way anyway, right? You're a very knowledgeable person when it comes to running. You're a coach yourself, and what you said at the end there was like, your coaches are a really important part of this. Like,
Mhm.
why? And it's funny, and I think people who don't always realize it. The top professionals have coaches, but
Yeah.
recreational runners seem to think they don't need a coach. So it's
Yeah.
like, where does that mindset come from, and
Yeah.
what do we see, and then how do we fix that? Because I mean, you
Mhm.
hit the nail on the head, right? Your coaches are going to be the ones that are going to help you figure some of that stuff out. So what are people missing? Like, why should runners
Yeah.
get coached here?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a professional for coming up on 9 years. I've been a high level runner for over a decade, uh, and I've always had a coach or someone in my ear. Like, I say this all the time at practice. Like, I love the X's and O's of running. I love writing out a good training plan. I love um, you know talking about certain workouts that we could do, more than the guys on the team get so annoyed with me, because I love talking talking nerdy about all that stuff. So but the reason you have a coach is because the deeper you get into the sport, the more you realize how little you actually do know, and you need
Mm,
someone to actually check your ideas and check your biases and check what you've always done. I think the best example of that is last year. Like we had a completely new strategy and it didn't work out. And uh, had I been just coaching myself, I don't know if I would have known where to turn, or if I don't know if I would have had someone to properly sit down with at the end of the year and say, what did we do right? Let's at least acknowledge those things. I stayed healthy. I had some, success in terms of practice and, like what new interval records and things like that. But clearly the race result didn't reflect what we wanted. And that's why you have a coach. It's that conversation. Like coaching is a relationship, and it's something that the deeper you get into your career, you should also get deeper with your coach, and that kind of like relationship of trust, but also knowing that like both of you want what's best for your running career, and having someone else to kind of like check those biases and things that maybe you're missing is incredibly important. And I also think why professional athletes have a coach. A simple answer is we just overcook ourselves. I know it sounds funny, but like I always say, like, I think I could maybe write a good training plan for myself. Oh, I think I could maybe, get 80%, 90% of the way there. Sure. But I also am, the one saying I need to be ready in June and be patient. That's my mom telling me that most of the time. It's not me. Like I said, I'm the one that's kind of like, oh, let's, I really want to work out with Sam today. He's got a 1500 coming up. I love running fast, like, and I need to
Yep.
be responsible enough. And like I said, without a coach, I may take the bait. It's
Yeah.
always good to have someone with you or traveling with you to really, hold you accountable to be the best version of yourself. And I think, same thing with the coach. It's just really, really good to have someone that will check you on those things. And
Yeah.
I'm fortunate I have a whole training group of guys and that are very, very mature and responsible. Like I look at what Reed and Connor did in this marathon buildup, and like they were so undertrained compared to what other top US marathoners were doing. Truly, like mileage wise, interval wise, like everyone's on Strava. You can see what people are doing, and they showed up and they had the best race. Two guys in the top 15, Reed in the top 10. And it was, inspiring for me to see that, because it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of what I'm trying to do this year, with the track. Is like, I've watched all my competitors run wicked fast this indoor season, and I have to be, confident enough in my journey, and having a coach to kind of guide you that step of the way and instill confidence in you and really kind of make you believe in the system that you guys have, worked on together is vital.
That's huge. Yeah. There's so many benefits. I just, running is perceived to be simple when in
Yeah.
reality, it's very complex.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's so much intricacy of running. And
Hmm.
listen, some people do just want to experience it of I put my shoes on and I run 3 miles 3 days a week.
Yeah.
That's great. Running can be that for you. But if you have any goals around performance, or and performance can be not just times, but completing new distances or doing events, like I think that a coach is so valuable. And so I kind of want to put my money where my mouth is with this. And Drew and I are going to do something a little fun here. So I'm going to put Drew on the spot here. We're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna have a little fun with this. So I don't know if I told Drew this even or fully explained this here. And Drew's a coach with Hammer and Axe, and I think it's like they offer great services. I think they do a really good job, and their athletes, we just always see great raving reviews from them and achieving PRs and setting goals, and it's really fun. And he just said loves the X's and O's of running. So I am turning 40 this year, and I have this probably a little very ambitious goal that I want to run a sub 5 minute mile every year in my 40s.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Originally, I said that I was going to run like a 4:51 this year and give myself a second every year so that by the
Mm,
time I turn 50, like
yeah.
I run like a 5 minute mile or something. But
No,
I
let's actually start with a 4:59 mile, and let's get faster as you get older. Come on.
I
Let's
like it.
just, yeah.
See, this is why I need a coach. I need a coach to help me set obtainable goals in the first place here. That it's like, so we wanted to do something fun that would be pretty cool. Like have Drew kind of just be my coach and put together, and maybe even I know we should have said this before, but maybe you can even share your screen, and like we might put a plan in. I put myself as an athlete in and hammer and axe, but maybe you can
Perfect.
even at the bottom there's a present button there. If you hit that, and we'll see if we can share your screen here, and we'll bring up the Run DNA app. But maybe while you're getting some of that, I'll give a little background about like where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Um, and kind of like where I'm starting. So some of you knew that have followed me on social or things like that. I had an injury this past summer, and that was I partially tore my patellar tendon. I hit my knee on the ground pretty hard, saying goodnight to the kids when I jumped on my back, and I hit it, and there was so kind of a little eccentric load toward the tendon. Had to try to be really smart about not running for a while. Even I was with Sam in St. Moritz, like one of my favorite places in the world to run, and I had to not run. So I've just slowly come back. And what I've focused on coming back is I realized I was going to run kind of really slow for my normal paces anyway. So I might as well get something out of it. And
Mhm.
so I started doing all my running with just nasal breathing. So I just did everything just to really force me to stay more in that zone two. So that was, I probably started that back in late September, early October when I was getting back to running a bit. And then I started to then, after that point, I just kind of built up, and I literally was, I went from normally running 750 to 8-minute mile pace to running 10:30 to 11-minute mile pace,
Yeah,
just trying to stay in zone two and keep my heart rate low enough and not
yeah,
pass out on the run there. But now I'm up to the point where, running like 8:45 to 9 with nose breathing only there, and I've increased my efficiency a good bit. I'm only running, we're going to talk about minimum effective dosage here. I'm running like 15 to 20 miles a week.
okay,
Uh, Within the last 3 weeks, I just started a little bit of speed work.
okay,
My birthday's in June, so about 3 months from now, but it doesn't have to be on my birthday. Just in my 40th year here,
okay,
I need to run a sub 5-minute mile. And I just started a little bit of 400 stuff where I was literally my first time I did 3 by 400. And then I did, now I'm doing like 2 sets of 3 by 400 and
nice.
kind of descending. The first one is normally like 6:30 pace, six. And then I think I worked down in this last one with the six one. I was probably doing like 4:45 pace for
Okay,
the sixth rep of 400 meters, and felt fine, no pain or
yeah.
anything after it there.
How many days a week are you roughly running? You said 15 to 20 miles. Is it
Yeah,
every
like
other day?
roughly, yeah. Roughly,
Okay,
it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I get a run in. I've been a wimp and just running on treadmills inside because I haven't wanted to do too much with that.
mhm,
And then I'll try to get like Sunday is run day. My wife is great and lets me get out for
yeah,
an hour or so, and I'll typically get 7 to 10 miles in, depending on the weekend
yeah.
there. All right,
Awesome.
so we just brought
Okay,
up here's my calendar on the Run DNA
yeah,
app. Drew's got it up here.
yep,
And so we're gonna check out some
yeah.
things and see how to get me running fast.
Yeah, no, so I really like the structure that you kind of already presented. For anyone who doesn't know, like uh, I've actually worked with a few people that have very kind of similar goal to Doug, like a sub 5-minute mile or just something, that's a little bit more of a short distance, middle distance type race. I think, a lot of recreational runners, they're like, oh, I just want to run a marathon every year. And that training looks vastly different than what we're doing, than, what we would do with you, Doug, just because you actually got to run fast. You have
Mhm.
to, actually learn, the mechanics of what sub 5-minute mile pace feels like. And we have to practice that somewhat regularly. So I'd say the first thing that, I like the structure of what you're kind of doing is, tentatively, I'd like to get you up to 5, 6 days a week of running. What people think when they first hear that is, holy cow. but 3 of those days will be very, very easy jogging. Just getting out, like you said, even if, like you're just nose breathing, like I don't care. It can be a trot. Like I don't like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. How I look at training is those are the days that you absorb the hard workouts. And so for me, like those are also the days like I'm a professional athlete. Like I love having a day where I can just jog, listen to a podcast, enjoy the beautiful scenery around me. And I think, for you, Doug, you're, a CEO of a company and, you have a lot of things, you have kids, you have a lot of stuff on your plate. Like for anyone, that's listening to this and going, oh my gosh, 5, 6 days a week. Like I want you to know, like a lot of that, most of that running is easy. And very conversational. So I'd say the first thing we would do is, like if we're looking at a Monday to Tuesday week, I would just put in starting on a Monday, some sort of just easy run. So like, for Doug, like I would say where he's at right now, maybe a 30 to 35-minute easy run. And like I said, that is, something that I personally think is a great way to start the week. It's not something that you're like have hanging over your head on the weekend. Like, oh man, on Monday I have this 400-meter interval workouts. I gotta, I would think it's, hard to start the week that way. So just an easy jog would be a great kind of first kind of day to, really get things going. Tuesday, I like to have my workouts on Tuesday. And so we're going to keep that, structure in for Doug. I think a great kind of workout when you're training for the mile is some sort of uh, faster intervals, but I also love to have some Doug doing some hill repeats to start. Like I said, we've got a long year. If you're turning 40 in June, we don't need to do anything crazy right now. But I really love like a simple workout. Something that would get started with Doug is something like hill repeats. And I think a great one to start would be something like 8 by 30 second hill repeats with jog down rest. I think these are great because hills you can kind of make them as hard or as easy as you want. You can change the grade. You can really slam the hill. You can also just kind of have it be more of like a up tempo kind of stride day if that's how you're feeling. But to get things started out, in this first week, I think, a great kind of first kind of Tuesday workout would be a good solid warm up, some hill repeats. In the description of the workout, it says, let's start at maybe 5K or 3K effort. And you can
Yeah.
slowly ramp those down to, closer to your mile effort. I want to let everyone know listening, with a hill repeat, you don't have to run the pace of the interval necessarily. I think some people get confused. They think 30-second hill repeats at mile pace. That's really hard. That is pretty hard. That's we would like to do that on the track, but since you're on a hill, we can slow things down a little bit. And as
So
Doug
the
knows, hills,
effort would be like mile effort,
yes,
and the pace is more just whatever the pace is because it's going to depend on the incline of
exactly.
the hill and your
Yes,
footing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So something like that is a really kind of good, good kind of workout. I love starting new runners and people kind of coming back from injury on hills because there's this kind of misconception that hills are like really hard on your body. But actually, like running up a hill is one of the best things you can do for your mechanics. And also, it's I feel amazing the day after hills, believe it or not.
Mhm.
I'm sore and tired, but I feel like I've got a little pep in my step and some pop in my stride. And I think, there's something that early on in the training plan with Doug, we'd love to incorporate, hills. Wednesday, day off. So, just with where Doug's at, I'm not crazy about the idea of you having 3 run days in a row.
Yeah.
Rest day, what does that look like? Different for everyone. For Doug, that could be a walk after, work with his family. It could be a bike ride with his kids. It could also even be if Doug, has a really good, Peloton in the basement or whatever it may be, flushing the legs for 30 minutes. I don't really
Yeah.
care. My rule with a rest day is it's restful, and that's different for everybody. It's a day that makes you feel rejuvenated and helps you kind of work through the kinks and maybe the soreness that you have in the previous day. So, like I said, some sort of rest day would be good for Doug. Thursday, we're coming back to just an easy run. So after a rest day, I don't love, doing, a hard workout right after a rest day. I like to have some sort of easy run. Down the line, we may mix in some strides for Doug, but like I said, we're just starting out, so we're keeping the
Yeah.
easy runs pretty easy. So another thing, 30, 35 minute easy run, just like Monday. And then Friday would be the second workout of the week. And when I say workout, I mean obviously you're going for a run, that's a workout. But I'd say, more of a workout that your heart rate's up a little bit more, you're running
Mhm.
a little bit faster, and it's a good opportunity for you to think about, kind of like this is the workouts of the week that are helping me develop the skills I need for a good mile race. And so on Friday, I there's so many workouts that I love to start with. And I know Doug maybe or maybe not loves to do these. I like to start with most of the athletes I work with fartleks. A fartlek
Mhm.
is a Swedish term for speed play. It also gives, just like the hill repeats, a lot of freedom for
Yeah.
the athletes to kind of pick and choose, paces and efforts based on where they're at. Say Doug's had a hard day of work on Thursday and he's just a little tired. You can still get in the volume of a great workout, but
Yeah.
not beat your body up in a ridiculously hard way. So for Friday, I love, there's so many different workouts, but we're going to start with a pretty simple one for Doug. Cause like I said, I'm just taking over his training. I don't want to get him injured. We want to keep,
Starting
things.
basement level here. This is
Yeah.
like, I just, don't
Mhm.
wanna turn into a slow old man here.
Exactly. So something like this, 12 times minute on, minute off, um, in a 40-minute run is a great way to kind of, get in a little bit of faster volume, work on, developing your aerobic capacity for the mile race and, not overdoing things. So, how this works is I'd have Doug warm up 10 to 15 minutes and then he would either change shoes or keep his trainers on and he would run 1 minute efforts in this workout description, it's around 5K effort, 1 minute at 5K, and then he would jog the following minute at just an easy run jog pace. And he'd do that 12 times. And so it's a 24-minute workout. It's 12 minutes of quality, but 24 minutes total. And then after he finished, he'd jog about 5 more minutes and get to 40 minutes total on the day. And it's a great kind of way to introduce some faster running, but also, like I said, you can pick and choose. Like, say one of the minute reps is up a hill. He would obviously run slower than the previous rep. Say he's on a track, they might be a little bit more consistent across the board. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of what I would like to do. Saturday, same thing, rest day, day
Yeah,
off. We don't want Doug running more than 5 days a week right now, so we're
yeah.
going to keep it there. I also think for a lot of people, that are working full time, Saturday is a good day to, not have to stress about running. And, it's a great kind of time to, just be with your family or whatever you may be doing. And then finally, Sunday, some people's favorite day of the week. Sunday, I always love to have a long run. So one run that's longer, but easier for a lot of athletes.
Mhm.
And so for Doug, where we're at right now, that would probably be 45 to 50 minutes. I'm not entirely, set on what that looks like. But for in the range of something like that. So 45 to 50-minute long run. Um, I always like to tell people how I look at long runs. They can be faster than an easy run pace if you feel good and you feel like things are trending in the right direction. They also can be roughly the same pace as an easy run. It's more about the time you're out there than the distance you cover. So, for someone like Doug, 45 to 50 minutes, like we'd love to get that up to, 75, 80 minutes, when he's in the big thick of, getting ready for a mile. But that's, I'd say, kind of a similar week structure. How we will build on this. And Doug, do you want me to fill out, 4 weeks of what a build of this might
Yeah,
look
maybe
like?
we do you see the new, copy week function there? That's a new
Yes.
one. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
maybe we just do, um, you hit it on the 11th, sorry, yeah. So if you, close this one out and go to the 11th or so,
Okay. This
and
one?
then yeah, hit that button, and then you can copy it to the next week, and then
Okay.
that will, or
This would
copy
be
it to the 18th. Yep.
18th.
So
There you
that's
go.
all set. And then you hit
Great.
copy and then
Yeah.
it'll go. So then you can see just,
Yeah.
what do you think? Like, how do I progress it for the
Yep.
next 4 weeks here?
Yeah.
What do we change? How steady should I be? You see
Yeah.
like the training load on the right side there. Like, how do we progress that too?
Yeah, so, with someone like, Doug, we want to progress with, we'll call it aggressive intention, meaning we want to, we don't want him doing the same thing all the time. And we want to get up to, where he's doing intervals at 5 minute mile pace and things like that. But we want to be intentional about it and not overdo things. And that's actually where you know, the training load in Run DNA app is great because it kind of checks me as a coach to where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not, overdoing things. So I want to keep his easy runs the same. And I want to add up his interval workouts to make those a little bit longer in his long run. This is one of my kind of like hacks, if you want to call it that, for coaching is I don't love increasing the volume of easy runs and workouts at the same time. I think choose
Mm,
one or the other. So for someone like Doug, I want to get him up to, doing 200s at 5 minute mile pace, some 300s, things like that. So I'm going to focus on those Tuesday and Friday workouts as the things that we're going to increase the load in rather than, okay, Doug, let's get you up to 40 or 45-minute easy runs. Let's keep those
yep.
easy runs easy. Let's keep them in your structure. But let's make sure that, we have a solid progression about what we're doing. So what I would do with this week is, I want him to do the same simple hill repeats, 30 seconds, but let's add two.
Yep.
This same thing. This is like I said, this is a 12 minutes of fartlek work. Let's keep it at 12 minutes, but let's lengthen the rep and let's lengthen the time that he's out there. So I added a 6 x 2 minute on, 1 minute off fartlek. So it's still 12 minutes of fartlek work, but he's running now the same intensity for 2 minutes
Mm,
instead of 1 minute. So, like I said, we're slowly adding a little bit more of the volume and the intensity. And then for the long run, let's get Doug up to doing a 50 to 55-minute long run this weekend. I love the ranges for these because I think it gives, a little bit of autonomy to the athlete to be like, "Oh, I feel good. Let's get to 55 today." Or let's do the same as last week. I had a good week of intervals. We don't need to overdo things. So I think, that's really, really important. So let's copy another week and then we would same thing. I am now going to start to add in flat intervals for Doug. Um, One of my favorite kind of transition workouts is doing hills. And then I think actually Doug has witnessed me do this in Delaware with him. Doing hill repeats and then coming to the track and really working on developing those fast twitch muscle fibers and race fluidity. So I love to do something like this. Here we go.
mm,
Um, and add in a little bit of a threshold work. So this is a workout that I like to use a lot. He does 6 200-meter hills. So like he's basically been doing.
yep.
Then he takes a bigger break and he runs 6 200s on the flat. And then afterwards, we have a mile at threshold. So I want to slowly start to increase kind of, okay, he's doing these, track workouts, but we still need to develop, his aerobic engine. I don't know the exact percentage, but a mile is like an 80% aerobic race. So we want to, make sure that Doug is strong and fast. It's one of the cool things about a mile race is you're kind of touching on both of those things. And so, like I said, this is just a workout I like to do. We are going to
That's the
move
whole
this.
reason I picked a mile for my goal because it forces me like, you have to have some aerobic condition,
Yep.
you have to have, like, some speed, you have to, like, we haven't talked about,
Yep.
I'm still gonna get in the weight room twice a week kinda with
Yep.
some of this stuff and make sure that I'm doing that. It forces me to be a pretty balanced
Yep.
athlete with that too, which is why I think the mile is pretty cool with that.
No, I completely agree. I think it's, I don't know. I always tell people, I'm like, you don't need to slog around at marathon pace and all these other things. Like, have fun, run a little
Yeah.
bit less than you would, head to the track, do some 200 repeats. I think a mile is a great kind of thing to train for if you're just like, I just want to be an overall kind of well-rounded athlete, like Doug just said. We could throw in some lifting stuff that would really help you, and any sort of these sort of little things. So just the other things I added real quick, we increased him again. So this is the last fartlek I kind of like to do before we start real intervals. 5 times 3 minutes on, 1 minute off. So as you can see, we actually added 3 minutes of training load, but also he's running a little bit longer. So, and like I said, these fartleks vary. For someone like Doug, if he's running on a hilly route, somewhere, the pace is kind of irrelevant. Like I said, on all these, I want him to lock into more of, a threshold to start and then kind of get closer to 5K kind of effort towards the end of these fartleks. I don't really like the idea of being like, Doug, you have to run K repeats at 5K race pace. And then Doug gets out there and he goes, man, I'm not feeling it today. I'm just a little sluggish. I didn't sleep well last night. All of a sudden, your mind kind of starts to tell you, oh, that was a failure of a workout. In reality, if he had just done a fartlek and said, I'm just going to go off effort, he could have been running slower than 5K pace, but he would have been happy with how it was going. And he's still developing those training systems that we want to develop. We increased the long run by a little bit. That was the only other thing. So I'll do one more week of kind of, what training would look like, just so you guys had an idea of how this kind of works and what, we kind of like to do with athletes. So we're heading into April 1st. I would maybe give him a day off for April Fool's Day, but then tell him really late at night or something like that he actually has to run. I'd send him a text like 8 p.m. and say, dude, you have a run DNA, get out there.
I
Even though I
get up
told him I had
there.
a day off.
Yeah.
I actually told my mom for our team, this is a little side tangent, but it's funny. I told her on April 1st to put in a ridiculous workout for our team in our
Nice.
training logs and
Yeah.
just not say anything until we show up to practice, and then see if any of the guys, because a lot of the guys in our team are like crazy about that stuff. They're like, Joan, what are you doing? What is this? And so we'll kind of mess with them a little bit. So we'll see if she does it, but
That'd be
I'll be
funny.
nice to Doug and won't do that. So I think, like I said, Doug's 3 weeks into this. He has a good foundation of things. I want to kind of maybe start to test and see where, how does a longer interval at kind of mile race pace feel like. So let's just do one of my favorites, 6 400s at goal mile race pace.
Mm.
And like I said, this isn't showing the descriptions, but all these have bigger descriptions about warm up,
Yeah.
efforts, all the things like that. I'm just showing you the calendar view. But 6 400s at goal mile race pace. So for Doug, 5 minute mile race pace, that's 75 for quarters. So let's just say for him, we would want to run maybe just start at 75s and hopefully by the end, maybe be a little bit quicker. The rest of these ones, I believe, is 2 minutes. So that's a harder workout. Like, you're gonna be tired by the end. You're gonna be working a little bit harder, and I'm okay with that. That's
Yeah.
kind of the goal that we have is, we want to get used to, those longer runs at, your goal mile race pace. But something I do want to be cautious of is how it will maybe feel later in the week. So
Mhm.
I don't want to get too greedy and have two really big aggressive workouts. In the same week, especially with building up and, getting just started in this training plan. So we may on this day really kind of do some lighter intervals. I also love kind of just like a simple tempo run. That's something that I do with a lot of athletes. So for someone like Doug, I will put in a 20-minute tempo run. What a tempo run is we actually just put up something on Hammer and Axe, but it's has a lot of different names. People throw it around, but a tempo run should be close to your marathon race, maybe a little bit faster for some of you, and it's just a
Mhm.
continuous run. So Doug would do something like a 15 to 20-minute warm up, and then he would go start his 20-minute tempo run, and he would run that at whatever his pace that's assigned is. So for someone like Doug, that would be, like I said, significantly faster than mile and even 5K, and even a little bit slower than threshold pace. But it's enough where your heart rate's up. You're not, I always like to tell athletes, you could have a conversation with someone, but it would be a sentence or two, and then you would kind of want to stop talking. That's a good metric for it. Um, and yeah, I think this is a great complementary workout for something like the mile, where you're still developing your aerobic system, but you're not beating up your body too much. And like I said, the freedom of a tempo run, you don't have to do it on a track. You can just go to a beautiful trail. You can do
Yeah.
it on a road, wherever. And then the last thing we would do is, like I said, let's just bump up his long run. Like I said, I want to get him up to close to 75, 80 minutes. So another bump up to 60 or 65 minutes for someone like Doug would be, you know, a good kind of start for him. So, yeah, like I said, that's 4 weeks. This is very, with a lot of the Hammer Next clients, we're doing this, but we're having lots of conversations beforehand. But I think this is a good template for someone to get started on and kind of see, how things are feeling. You may have, setbacks during this where you're sick one day or, things like that. But I really think this is a good structure to at least kind of, get going on things and start to really kind of develop, a little bit more of, you know, just get ready for a mile race. And like I said, a mile is a fun race to get ready for because it is, strength and speed. And so I think, this is a good kind of plan to get started with, someone like Doug. I'd love to, have at least 6 weeks before we give it a real good crack at a mile. Preferably more like 8 is kind of someone for like this. So this maybe is introductory 4 weeks. I'd want at least 2 more weeks before we gave it a good crack, and then
Yeah.
even probably 2 more weeks before we did it again. And we might do things like, I love kind of like little time trials or check-ins, where we
Mhm.
maybe one weekend Doug does an 800 at faster than mile race pace, and we just see how fast he runs. And that really would help boost, his performance in a few weeks after doing stuff like that. So that's kind of the general structure. But obviously there's a lot more to it than that. So yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, no, Drew, thank you. It's
Mhm.
great to see. And, it's the same thing. Like as Drew was saying earlier, right? Obviously, I coach athletes. I was once a little more athletic than I am now, but, was athletic at one point. But it's still so important to have a coach, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, there's all those things. I think sometimes even when you know a lot about running, it's
Mhm.
harder to almost pick like, where do I want to start?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because exactly like you're saying, it felt really good to run those 400s. I did,
Yeah.
like, for the past 2 or 3 weeks,
Yeah.
but, I do need to be a little more foundational. It's not like you can't just jump into some of that stuff. And
Yeah.
like, you'll chase what feels good and what you think is
Yeah.
good, but running injuries have a 4 to 6 week delay. So if
Yes.
you can
Yeah.
get like 4 weeks of something in and then you have to stop, you're not
Yeah.
making any gains with it.
Yeah.
So it's good to have somebody with an outside perspective that's not like, but yeah, I like 400s. Like I want to run some 400s. Like, no, you're not
Yeah.
ready for that. Like you need some hill repeats and you need to just run what feels easy with some fartlek kind of training. I think
Yeah.
it's really important just to get that perspective. I think everyone needs it,
Mhm.
and maybe this will be a recurring segment here where we do another month check in or something
That'd be
about
good.
what the
Yeah.
plan was there. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, maybe what we could do
Mhm.
is, after this 4 weeks, we do kind of like a little
Yeah.
bit of a test, like a 800 or 1,000, and we just
Yeah.
say, "Doug, we're gonna run your goal mile race pace, and
Yeah.
let's see how it feels." And then we can train for a few more weeks after that and give it a real crack
And
or
then
something. So,
yeah.
um, yeah,
That sounds
we'll have
great to
fun with it.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, let us know, and listeners in the comments,
Yeah.
if that would be interesting for you. We can see if I can get it
Yeah.
out there. It's a shame when you said, I won't be ready in time for this, but I was like, "Oh, he's got Penn Relays, like, maybe those guys could pace me." I
That
could
would
have,
be
like,
fun.
all these professional runners pace me to this there, but,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we'll have to see. Like, I don't think I could run this till well after trials or anything anyway. So,
Yeah.
I think we're safe for a little bit there. But
Perfect.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, Drew. This was fun. I think we
Yeah.
should do another one. Check up on it and check some things out there. And
Yeah.
thanks for sharing some of your running story too. I think it's important for people to hear what that's like. And there are obviously differences between professional and recreational runners. So it's kind of nice to have a little like your story and how you're training and what you're doing and the similarities and the differences more on the recreational side. And
Yeah.
you're just such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to it that it's really fun just to kind of see what you're doing and how you approach things. And it's just you have whole Team Adams here as raving fans of you, as well as many other people out in the country. So appreciate your experience and your insights there.
Yep. Thank you so much, Doug. Yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah. And if
I
people, what's the best way for people to like follow you and kind of see, like you mentioned Strava or Instagram, or like what's the best
yeah.
way?
For training stuff, definitely Strava. I post every day
Yeah,
on there, and you can see all the highs and the lows of, workouts that went well, workouts that didn't go well. I'm pretty
yeah,
honest. So, yeah, I'd say that, and then just anything else. Just yeah, Instagram is I trying to post more about where I'm racing and what I'm doing, but
yeah.
um, overall, like I just if you follow the Tinman Elite count, they'll post good everything you need to know about me. So
That's awesome. Yeah. And even Hammer and Axe has a lot of like you've got some pre-made plans made up or some options to do that. So
yeah,
there's things that are on there too. If you want to get it delivered to you and make it easy, there's some starter programs and as well as some one-on-one. So yeah,
yep, absolutely.
pretty good. Well,
Cool.
thanks everybody for listening. Happy running, and thank you, Drew.
Yep. Thanks, Doug.
Like what you hear? Leave a review of the show wherever you listen, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Run DNA helps runners and running specialists through education and technology to identify each runner's unique injury profile to avoid setbacks and maximize results. The Run DNA podcast is produced by Ace Running LLC. The Run DNA podcast is intended for educational purposes only. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can occur. Always seek the guidance of qualified medical professionals before making healthcare decisions. Find us online at rundna.com.